So this is top lane for both sides. This is bottom lane for both sides. This is mid lane for both sides. The only difference between the two sides is that the camps, which host different monsters in them, are opposite. So whereas this is where your blue buff, which I'll get to in a bit, is for bot side, which is, or I call it bot side, but I shouldn't because technically this is bot side. But for blue team, your blue buff is in this camp. You got wolves, and you've got what's called a grump. And then for red team, it's going to be over here instead. So there are 5 different players in each league team, and each player is going to have a different role. So no two people are doing the same thing. You've got your top laner, mid laner, your ADC, who plays in bot lane. ADC stands for attack damage carry. And you have your support, who goes bot lane with their ADC. And you've got your jungler, who roams the entire map. So we're going to start with top lane, because it's the simplest lane, and it's the lane I recommend any beginners play in. Hold on. Yeah, okay. I was going to switch mice, but I want to get through this first at least. So for top lane, well, here, let's get into the basics first. So in your base, you've got your Nexus. You've got 2 towers right here and here, which defend your Nexus. You have 3 inhibitors right here, here, and here. At least one of these must be destroyed in order for the Nexus to be targeted. And then you have your 3 turrets right here, here, and here. You have 2 walls right here and here that you can go through, but the enemy team can't. So that gives you a little bit of a tactical advantage playing around this area, because you can poke through and whatnot. Although many attacks can go through or over walls, so you have to keep an eye out for that. Just being behind your wall does not make you safe. It'll just keep you safe from very close range attacks. You have in each lane your inner tower here, here, and here. And you have your outer tower here, here, and here. So the tower's primary function is to keep the enemy team from advancing into your base or into your territory. So it keeps the players safe. In each lane, you'll have minions spawn. So minions will spawn in your base, pushing top lane, mid lane, and bot lane. The minions will draw the tower's attention. So when you're trying to destroy an enemy tower, you wait for the minions to go under tower, and when the tower targets them, you attack the tower. However, if you attack an enemy champion underneath the tower, then the tower will directly target you, which is what makes it so good for keeping players safe. It also increases damage for each shot beyond the first against a player. So even if you're a very tanky player, eventually the tower damage will ramp up and you'll have to respect it. So your top laner will contest mid right here, and they will usually do they will have an engage right here with the enemy top laner. And your job in the early game is to CS or gain creep score, which means you're trying to get money from killing minions. So you don't just want to attack minions, because that will, if you're constantly attacking the minion, it's hard to get the last hit on them because you also have minions attacking them. So you usually want to wait until minion's about to die and then try to time it to get the last hit in. If you've got a larger minion called a cannon, it's going to be worth more gold. And you'd think you can attack it until it gets kind of low, and then pull off and wait for the last hit, which can be a good strategy. However, oftentimes if you're doing that, then your lane is going to start pushing to their tower. And even though that sounds like it's what you want, it's not always what you want. Because your jungler, which we'll get to in a bit, does what's called ganking, which means they will come out from the jungle or this middle territory and ambush the person in your lane for you. And if your minions are pushed up all the way over here, then the enemy teammate's also going to be over here. Which means your jungler can't come and help you kill this person because he'll just hide under tower. So if you kill the minions as slowly as possible while still getting the money from them, then eventually your lane should start to push towards your tower. And once the enemy's pushed up here, then the jungler can come behind them, and then you've got a 2v1, and it's more of a guaranteed kill. Often, a jungler will try to give the laner the kill, because you get more money from killing a player than you do from getting an assist on a player, which is very important for buying strong items to increase your power level. However, if a jungler is very confident in what they're doing, they can try to take the kills to become what's called a carry, which means they're going to be a driving force leading your team to victory. It often depends on what champion the jungler is playing. Some junglers are good carries, and some junglers aren't meant to be carries. For example, I play Hecarim, who's an extremely offensive jungler, and if I get very fed, then I can help carry the team. But if I were to play a champion such as Amumu, he's an extremely tanky player, and he is not a good carry. Even if he's extremely fed, all that's going to do is make him extremely hard to kill, but that can still be played around to an extent, and that alone will not win your team the game. So if I were playing Amumu, then I would try to make sure that my laners always got the kills on a gank. So your top laners are always going to be brawlers. Well, not always, are often going to be brawlers. It's the meta for top lane. I'm not going to go into too much detail as to why certain metas exist, because that requires a very deep understanding, which I only have a limited understanding of. But there are drawbacks to having, a squishy range champion top lane. And in the end, it'll feel good at first to be able to get the poke damage on your laner, but in the end, it's not going to work out very well for your team. So then you've got mid lane, which is going to function almost the same as top lane. There's a few things to note with mid lane. So rather than brawlers, you're often going to have a mage, which is a very mana-intensive champion. Some champions use mana and some don't. You'll have a champion whose most of their damage comes from their Q, which is their first ability. And they've got a lot of range. Or you'll have a assassin, which is a character with extreme mobility and high burst damage. So the big difference on mid lane is that because you're in the middle rather than the top, you can get ganked by the jungler from either side. So you have to be much more aware of your surroundings, and you have to have much more map awareness. Because if you're top lane, all you have to do is keep an eye on what's going on in here to know if the jungler's coming through. But in mid lane, if you don't know where the jungler's at, you don't know which side to watch out for. And you can always have the top laner roam down to gank mid, or you could have the support or ADC roam up to gank mid. So you want to be much more careful pushing aggressively early. So it's more reliant on knowledge and team communication. However, that works in the reverse. Everyone has easier access to you, but you also have easier access to everyone. So if you succeed in taking your tower and pushing mid lane, then you start doing what's called roaming, which means you're going to be looking to play as kind of like a pseudo jungler, not in terms of like farming in the jungle, but in roaming top lane to help out or roaming bot lane to help out. Once you've taken a tower in your lane and the other opponent hasn't, you are able to roam and help out, because if they push up to attack this tower, when their tower is missing, then instead of them having to get back here to be safe, they'd have to get all the way back here to be safe, which means to push all the way up here to be aggressive is almost a death sentence, because if we see them pushing up here when top lane is roamed mid, then the top laner will simply come back, but they'll pass back through here along with like the mid laner, right? And then you'll have two people behind you and you won't be able to escape. So getting your tower, or getting the enemy tower before they get your tower, gives you a very strong early game advantage where you can roam around and be much more effective in contributing to the rest of your team. So you've got bot lane, which is where you're going to have an attack damage carry or ADC and a support. The ADC is always going to be like a ranged marksman. Well, not always. Again, meta, so this is the majority of the time. And you'll have a support who can either be somebody that's meant to tank for your ADC and soak up the damage, or somebody that has a lot of CC or crowd control. Because that helps protect the ADC, and that helps lock down an opponent so the ADC can secure a kill, because they're going to have high burst damage. They're called the attack damage carry because once they get very strong, they're going to be carrying in the damage department for your team in the late game. So it's pretty important the ADC does well early. Otherwise, you're going to have to rely on more of the team to be succeeding. And then finally, you got the jungler, who gets their resources from farming in the jungles. So you've got top side and bot side. And if you're on red team, you've got top side and bot side. So this is the top side of the map, and this is the bottom side of the map, or bottom side of the map. So in this camp right here, you've got your Krugs, which are little rock golems. You've got one big one and one medium one. The medium will break into two small. The big will break into two mediums. They each break into two small. You've got your red buff, which is a larger monster right here. When you kill it, it'll give you what's called the red buff, which is why you call it red buff, which will add burning effect to your attacks, which will help the jungler a lot with clearing other monster camps, but it's also good for dealing extra damage to champions. You've got a pile of birds right here, with one bird bigger than the rest. And then over here you've got a little pile of wolves. You've got your blue buff, which increases your mana regeneration heavily. And you've got what's called Gromp, which is a large frog that when killed will give some HP back. So depending on the jungler you're taking will depend on how you path in your jungle. So for Hecarim, right, I'm going to start blue buff, and you get leashed, which means you're going to have the top laner come help you kill this guy at the start of the game, so you can maintain your HP and get an early advantage. In the bottom lane, you would have the ADC and support help you leash the red buff for the same reason. So as Hecarim, I would get leash for blue, and come kill Gromp, drop down for wolves, and then come across, kill birds, to red buff, to Krugs. And you can see it's all fluent to try to be as optimal with my timing as possible. Yo, Morphix, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Alright, so I'm going to go here to here to here, through here to here to here, and then I'm going to come up around here. Because in the river right here and the river right here, something called a scuttle is going to spawn. The scuttle is a shielded little crab that doesn't attack back. And it's worth a hefty amount of gold and XP. And because it's a neutral territory monster, you'll often have a fight with the other jungler over it. So the quicker you can clear your jungles, the quicker you can get to Scuttle. But Scuttle takes longer to spawn the rest of the monsters, so you can't just wait for Scuttle. So if I'm having a perfect timing on my camps, I'm going to be coming up here right as Scuttle's starting to spawn. And if the other jungler's slower in coming up here, then you can take Scuttle before they get there. If they path on the other side, then you can also just take this Scuttle while they get that Scuttle. So the two most likely circumstances are that you both get to a Scuttler on the same time and you fight over it, or you both get to Scuttles on opposite sides, you both take them without being contested. Thank you, Lag. Yes, Scuttle spawns at 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Yo, what's up, Mr. Buffy? How's it going? Jungler, part of the reason that a jungler functions so well in clearing camps rather than anyone else is because they take what's called a jungle item. So they buy it at the start of the game, and it'll make them do more damage against champions, or against monsters. They'll get health back from monsters, and they get a stronger smite. Smite is a summoner spell. So they can use it once every, like, I don't know, it's like 45 seconds or so. I don't know the exact timing. All red and blue buffs spawn at 1:30. Thank you, Lag. Another way to know that the red and blue buffs are going to spawn is that they'll spawn right as your minions are clashing with the enemy minions in the middle of the map. Yes, and you can hold 2 charges of smite. It's called a jungle item. So, and I'm going to go through all the items after this to give more detail. But there's one. I'm trying to think of the names. Here, I'll pull it up real quick. We've got our screen here. So we've got Hailblade, and we've got Ember Knife. And they have slight differences in their late game effects, but they're both going to do the same thing of giving Omnivamp against monsters. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'll be putting this VOD up on YouTube, so if you are trying to learn League, then you can reference it. But otherwise, I hope you have an absolutely lovely rest of your Saturday. So I'll get into the more specific details of the items, but they're going to give Omnivamp, which is health gain from monsters, and they'll help you do more damage to the monsters. After you've used your Smite to kill a monster 5 times, it'll upgrade the item. So, Smite is a summoner spell. Any player can take it. So you could have a support or a top laner also have Smite. But if they don't have the jungle item, they're only using it on monsters. Whereas, with a jungler, if you take the jungle item, like Hailblade, then after you've killed 5 monsters with it, it'll upgrade into a new version of itself, which will allow you to actually use it against opponents as well, or other players. When you use it against another player, it does not do as much damage as against a monster, but it'll also have another effect against them. So Hailblade will slow the enemy's movement speed, whereas Ember Knife, I believe it decreases their attack speed. Let's see. Consumes this item, upgrade your smite to challenging smite. Challenging smite marks champions for 4 seconds. During this time, you deal 48 to 125 bonus true damage to them over 2.5 seconds on hit and take 20 reduced damage. Okay, so it decreases their damage to you. So Ember Knife is a better item for if you're going to fight in a 1v1. Versus Hailblade is better if you don't want them to escape you. I wish it were 40% lag. I'd take it all the time. So yeah, the jungler will take one of those 2 items. And like Lag said, it also gives you much more XP from the monsters. So if anyone else tried to jungle without the item, they would not be leveling up nearly quick enough. It's basically impossible to jungle without those items. They each cost 350. You can only have one. And you start a game with 500 gold. So you can usually take it and then like some health potions. But I'll go over exactly what I take in a bit. So you'll contest for Scuttle. And then over time, you will see your monsters start to spawn back on the minimap. So you'll come back through, reclaiming your monsters to get gold and XP, while looking for lanes where you can hop back in and gank, or help ambush other players. What characters are better for the jungle? Yes, so they're 100% characters that you would describe as junglers, and there are other characters that aren't necessarily junglers, but can succeed in jungling. Oops, let me pull that back up. So I'll pull up a list of champions here. So Amumu is a jungler. Fiddlesticks is a jungler. Kayn is a jungler. Hecarim is a jungler. Oops, what the Hecarim? Master Yi's a jungler, but he plays other lanes as well. Mordekaiser can jungle, but he's not necessarily a jungler. That's not his primary role. Nunu is a jungler. Pantheon can jungle, but it's not his primary role. Warwick is a jungler. And there are a handful of others. I believe these are only the ones I own right here. So actually, if we go store, I think there will be a jungler tab you can click as well. Assassin, Fighter, Mage, Marksman, so no. So the interesting thing about this game is that it's not actually going to classify what lane a champion belongs in. That's up to the player to decide based on metas and what works and what doesn't. So even though I call those guys junglers, the game's not going to call them junglers. So in the same role, they give you like Assassin, Fighter, Mage, Marksman, Support, Tank, but none of these say top lane, and none of these say ADC. That's for the meta to decide based on the current state of the game. Viego is a brand new jungler. Let's see. Ivern is definitely a jungler. Kindred's a jungler. Was Rek'Sai a jungler? I kind of mix up his name with a lot of other. Yeah, I believe Rek'Sai is a jungler. So 9 out of 10, let's go. Okay, good question. So one of the most important things for a jungler is that they've got a decent AoE ability, or area of effect ability, because a lot of the camps that you're fighting will have many monsters in them. So like this camp right here has like probably 8 birds in it, and if you can only hit 1 bird at a time, it's going to be extremely slow, and you're going to take a lot of damage from it. But like I play Hecarim, and his Q does a fanning attack all around him that'll hit every single bird here. And his W does an AoE field that damages enemies and heals me, which makes me able to clear these camps very quickly and efficiently. And the other important thing for a jungler, or extremely useful thing for a jungler is to have some sort of mobility tool. That way they can effectively gank or ambush lanes. So for example, Hecarim has a speed boost, so if mid lane's right here, I can use my speed boost to run through here and cut them off before they can escape. But if I were playing an extremely slow champion, I started to walk here, they'd see me, and they could just pull back here and try to escape much easier. CC can also be extremely useful for a jungler, because you can come through, crowd control them so they can't move, and then your laner can finish them off. Are there any other questions over basic jungling or any of the other lanes? I don't think I went over bot lane too much. Yeah, I haven't done bot lane yet, so we went over mid and top lane. Bot lane, you're going to have your attack damage carry and your support. We touched on this briefly, I suppose. So the final thing to note is that aside from all of the camps that give you golden resources, there are 2 large objectives on the map, which are right here where dragons will spawn, and right here where something called the Rift Herald will spawn. So every few minutes or so, a dragon will spawn. It can be, and I don't know the names of them as much as I should, but the dragons embody different elements. So there's an earth dragon, a fire dragon, a wind dragon, and a water dragon. And killing the dragon will give your team a permanent buff for the rest of the game. So claiming the dragon is extremely valuable. Mountain, air, ocean, infernal. Okay. So one gives armor, one gives passive health regen, one gives cooldown reduction, and one gives damage. And then later in the game, once you've got enough dragons, you'll get what's called soul, which will give you a even stronger effect of that dragon. And late game, the elder dragon will spawn after all the other dragons have been claimed. And air is specifically ultimate CDR. Okay, I'm not sure if I knew that. It makes sense though. Once you get the Elder Dragon, it'll give your team a temporary buff that makes it so that once you get an enemy below 30% health, they'll be executed immediately. So once you've claimed the Elder Dragon, that's usually a sign that you're about to end the game, but not always. It depends on the state of the game. And then Rift Herald up here is a large creature with a weak point on its back that opens up frequently. And once you kill it, it gives you the Eye of the Rift Herald, which is an active item that you use to resummon the creature to help you siege a tower. So if I'm top lane and I place the Eye of the Herald, then the Rift Herald will spawn and slam into this tower, doing a massive amount of damage. And if you can keep the enemy minions and champions off of it, then it can finish off a tower and then go into another tower as well. So you can potentially get a lot of value depending on how well you escort it. Yo, Dragon, thank you so much for the subscription. 8 months, let's go. I appreciate you so much. What's crazy is I think most of your subscriptions have come through as auto-renewals, so they haven't even been pinged for me. So I didn't even realize that we were on an 8-month streak. That's insane. Thank you so much. Yeah, lag. Hit him with that pog. I'm just going over League of Legends for beginners and whatnot, so if you're interested in the game at all, anything that you've missed will be on YouTube in the future. I'll try to get it uploaded tonight. So, I think that's enough for the basic overview. Let's dive into items a little bit now. So, the really cool thing about this game is that you, aside from having like 170 some champions, I'm sure Lag knows the exact number, you build a bunch of different items that changes the way that your champion will play. 154, okay. 154 champions. So you really get a kind of customized and personalized feel for your character and how they play. To the extent that you can even create your own small item shop for your champion. So if I come in here to collection, and I go to items, and I hit create new, you can see all these different items you can get, and I can drag them over here and create my own little item shop so that when I enter the game, I can just have this open and know exactly what I want to buy for my champion. Do one for Zyra? You need one? Absolutely, I will. I will do one for Zyra. So the game helps you by giving you these different categories to help you find the items you want. So if you're building a mage and you want a bunch of damage, you click ability power. And every single item that has ability power will be listed in here. It's going to be sorted from cheap to expensive. But more than just cheap to expensive, there's different tiers to items from, I don't know what the first one's called, but we'll just call it common. And there's epic, legendary, and mythic. So a mythic item, it's basically this chunk of items right here for the most part. Rabadon's is the most expensive item, but it's not a mythic. So the way to tell if it's actually a mythic or not is if you click it, and then down here you'll see it says Mythic Passive, grants all other legendary items 5 ability haste. Yes, you definitely don't want random items. The game helps to recommend you what's useful, but if you actually know what your items are doing for you, then you're going to know how to play around them much better. So you know it's mythic, so it tells you Mythic Passive. So each mythic item has a Mythic Passive that'll give you a small bonus for each other item that you've built. So Liandry's is going to give you ability haste, which means you can use your abilities on a shorter cooldown. And then if we come over here to Luden's Tempest, it's going to give us magic penetration, which means if people build magic armor or magic resist, then this will ignore some of that magic resist to do more damage. So if you're going to make an item build for your champion, the first thing you want to do is figure out what mythic you want. So for my Zyra, I'm going to want a Liandry's. And then the next tier below that is legendary, which are the same as mythic items, except they don't have a mythic passive, and you can build more than one of them. So like Lich's Bane, like all of these items in this middle chunk are all going to be legendary items. And then you got your epic items, like Lost Chapter, and epic items actually build into mythic items. So you can see if I click Liandry's here, you can see this chart. You've got these common items down here. Gives just some ability power, just some mana. Yo, what's up, X-Paint? How's it going? Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. What's up, Duckstorm? Hope you guys are having a lovely Saturday. This gives just mana. And then if I build these 3, then each one of these I build will make this cheaper. So this costs 1,300. But if I spend 435 on this, then this will cost 435 less gold. So by the time I've built all of these, this will probably be down from 1,300 gold to like 200 gold. Yo, what's up, Curiosity? How's it going? Oh, Claudia. That's a lovely name. Welcome, Claudia. So these build into your epic item here, and these 2 epic items will build into your mythic item. So if you don't have a ton of gold, then you can still build small things to help you build towards the big thing that you want. I've been doing very well, X-Pine. Thank you so much for asking. I'm glad you've been having a great weekend. So you're never going to just be like, oh, I really want to get a Fiendish Codex. But you might be like, oh, I really want a Lich's Bane. That Lich's Bane needs a Fiendish Codex, which isn't true, but you get the idea. So depending on the champion you're playing, you're going to want to focus on different things. So if I'm playing Zyra, I play her as a support, but she's also a mage with a lot of ability damage. So I like to get a lot of ability power on her and build her as a very damaging support. So I would probably build Liandry's because you can see every time you get to a legendary item, it has a effect on top of its base stats. So Liandry's Anguish, its effect is Torment. Dealing damage with abilities causes enemies to burn for a base amount of damage plus a % of my ability power plus a % of their max health damage every second for 4 seconds. LED to pink. Let's go. I got you. That's more blue. Hold on. There we go. Sorry if it doesn't look very pink, but it's very pink for me in here. The camera doesn't pick it up very well. We even have a pink keyboard now. So I really like the effect of Liandry's because even if you do just a tiny bit of damage, you just poke at them, then over the next 4 seconds, they will burn for a substantial amount of damage. So because I'm a support and I'm playing far back, I'm just trying to poke at them and get this to trigger to burn them over time. And then from there, I really like to build a item called Demonic Embrace, which is right here. Because Demonic Embrace has an extremely similar effect. Dealing ability damage burns enemies for 1.2% of their max health every second for 4 seconds. But this one actually gives you armor and magic resist while they're burning. It does change the ambience a lot. So once you get these two in conjunction, you have a very hefty amount of burn. But then Luden's Echo, which is another really, really good mythic. Sorry, Luden's Tempest is a really good mythic for mages for high burst damage. Partially because of its extra ability power it's giving you in armor and magic penetration, but also because of its secondary effect. Damaging abilities deal an additional 100 plus a percentage of your ability power damage to the target and 3 enemies. So this does more burst damage, but because this gives cooldown reduction, it's going to let me get my crowd control abilities back quicker. And if I have a crowd control ability up and available to use, then I have a way to protect my ADC, or my attack damage carry, my partner in the bottom lane. Once I've used my crowd control ability, then I've now left both of us vulnerable until it's off of cooldown. So getting cooldown reduction is going to be more valuable for me as a support than if I were playing Zyra mid lane, where then I might want to go for Luden's Tempest for the more burst damage. So then from there, I actually wouldn't... So I would go Liandry's first, but then the second item you want to build is always boots. The easiest way to find boots when you're building a shop is to go movement, because they all give you some movement. But there's multiple different boots to choose from. These are your starter boots. These build into all other pairs of boots, and they just give base speed increase. So when you build boots really depends on your financial situation. So if I have to go back to base... Oh, let me drink some water. My throat's getting so dry. This is a lot of talking. Brings me back to my days as a teacher. If I go back to base, right, and I've bought let's say I bought my Lost Chapter for 1,300 gold, and I've got 350 gold left. This costs 435 gold, so I can't afford it. But you always want to try to spend as much gold as you can, because if you leave with unspent gold, then you're choosing to engage in fights being weaker than you could have been. So, because I can't afford the next part to the item I want, that would be a really good opportunity to grab my boots. Now, if I came back and I just had 1,300 gold, I would definitely grab this and ignore my boots. So you basically slip these in whenever it's a good opportunity to do so. Yo, what's up, Bianca? Welcome, welcome. But you don't rush them over your important items that you're trying to get. So you build your mythic, slipping in your small boots whenever you get the opportunity. And then after you finish your mythic, you want to finish your completed pair of boots. So you have Boots of Swiftness, which give the most flat speed increase at 60. All other completed boots are going to give you 45 move speed plus a bonus. This one just gives you 60 move speed and reduces your slowing. So if you ever just need a highly mobile character, often like a jungler would like these, Swiftness is good. Or mobility boots, which give you 115 speed when you're out of combat, but once you get in combat, it reduces to 25. So it's not good for escaping fights, but it's really good for engaging in fights. As a mage in the bot lane, there's a good chance I would want Sorcerer's Shoes, because they give you magic penetration, which is going to help get past my enemy's defenses. So I'd probably take these, unless I'm playing against an opponent that has a lot of crowd control. Like, let's say they had Morgana. Morgana is a extremely painful crowd control champion. I would build the Mercury Treads, which give you 30% tenacity, which reduces slows, stuns, taunts, and so on and so forth by 30%, and gives you some magic resist to boot. So I'd say Mercury Treads are probably the most universally useful boots. I take them... It's extremely situational which boots you take, but these are almost always a good choice. So I would take these or these, depending on how the game is looking. Because I ban Morgana, there's less of a chance of me having a heavy crowd control champion, but there are a lot of big crowd control abilities out there. If I were playing as a tank in the bot lane, then that's when you want the plated steel caps, because it reduces damage from any normal attack by 12% and gives you some armor. Why not go mobility boots as support for the roam? You could do that, but Usually by the time you're buying boots, you're not roaming yet. At least from my experience as a support, because you don't want to roam too much until you've taken your tower. And because usually if you're roaming, it's to set something up and not as an urgent rescue. With Hecarim as a jungler, because I've got so much speed, if I go with Mobius on top of that, somebody could scream for help in the top lane, I could get there really quick either way. But even with the mobility boots, if you're in the bot lane and someone's screaming for help mid, you're not going to make it there in time to save them. So it would make it mildly more convenient for roaming, but I don't think the trade-off is worth it compared to the amount of value you get in doing damage with sorcerers or the extra tenacity you get from Mercury Treads. But everyone has their own play styles, and there's some people will say there's objectively wrong choices. I disagree with that. If you love roaming as a support, and you find the extra mobility to feel really good, then by all means, take your Boots of Swiftness or your mobility, and enjoy your unique playstyle. I do a lot of off-meta things because I find it to be boring and uninteresting to just copy the most meta builds from the internet. So this is all from my experience and what I like doing, but if you wanted the best optimal build for Zyra or for anyone, you're just one search away on the internet. I just don't find that to be a fun way to play, personally. But yeah, you could definitely take mobility boots or Swifties. It just depends on preference and the state of the game. So from here, once I've gotten both of my burns for Zyra, then I'm going to be looking for more utility. So at that point, I'm going to look at either not Magic Patrician. From there, I'll probably go to either Rylays, because damaging abilities slow enemies by 30%. So this gives you a lot of utility. It makes your abilities have another effect that helps your team and engages, which can be really good on top of its large base ability power. Or I would look towards getting the Morellonomicon, which applies Grievous Wounds, meaning it heavily reduces the rate at which people heal from healing effects. So if I'm looking at the enemy team and they have a lot of health regen, a lot of lifesteal, or a lot of healing supports or champions, then I'll take this as my third item. And if they have a lot, then I'll actually take the component right here, the Oblivion Orb, which gives you the Grievous before I get my second item. So knowing which... oftentimes in a game, you'll want Grievous Wounds from one source or another, because life steal is a very relevant meta. So for mages, the Morellonomicon is extremely good because it gives you ability power. If you're being a tank, then you want Thornmail. Will protect you from... it'll give you armor and apply Grievous when you get hit. So if there's a Yone that's got a lot of lifesteal, Thornmail can be really good because it'll make him do a lot less damage to you and heal a lot less from hitting you. So it's a very good counter to him. Or there is one that I believe gives magic resistant Grievous. Let's see. There's not a tab for Grievous, it's a little harder to find. It's like Chemtunk, I think. Dealing physical damage applies Grievous Wounds. So this is a good source of Grievous Wounds for being more of an attack damage player. Or my favorite Grievous is a Mortal Reminder. Right here. Which gives you a lot less attack damage, but it gives you attack speed, crit chance, and the big one is movement speed. And because I built my jungler, my Hecarim, for a lot of movement, the move speed there is very, very good. So I'll either build Rylays or the Morellonomicon at that point for my Zyra, depending on what utility my team needs. So let's X that out and delete that. So Rylays I'm going to get one way or another, but it just depends on when I'm going to get it. And then Morellonomicon is situational. And then if you're building a lot of ability power, then at some point in your build, usually near the end of your build, you always want to get Rabadons. Rabadons is difficult to build because it only has 2 components and each one costs 1250. So if you go back to base and you only have 900 gold, then you could be leaving without getting any value. However, the completed item gives you 120 ability power, which is already higher than any other item, and its passive is to increase your total ability power by 35%. So if I already have ability power from 3 or 4 different items, then this is going to be a massive power spike. So that's a really good last item to have for a mage. Any champ can become tanky with items to an extent. However, a lot of champions have passive abilities or effects that make them tankier. So, for example, your Seraphine will never be as tanky as a Mumu, because a Mumu has a passive that gives him a lot of damage mitigation. You could build a tanky Seraphine, but she wouldn't be as tanky as a tanky champion. So at that point, it would be a very inefficient use of your items. If you were building solely for that. Now, if you notice that you're getting bursted down really quickly with Seraphine, then what you want to do is identify what the sorts of damage is that's really kicking your butt. So let's say they have a Brand as their support, the Fire Lord, and he's doing a ton of damage to you. Then it would be completely fine to build an item that has some magic resist to help you sustain that damage and keep being useful. So it's okay to build items for survival on your champion. You just wouldn't want to fully spec into it. And there are some really good items that are hybrids. So for example, if you were playing Seraphine and they had a support that was doing a lot of magic damage, then a really good item for that would be Abyssal Mask. It's because we got ability power on. There we go. So Abyssal Mask gives you 60 magic resist, which would take a ton of that damage away. 360 health, which helps a lot. But then its passive, Unmake, immobilizing a champion causes them to take 10% increased damage for 4 seconds. So then, as Seraphine, this would make you much tankier against their support. But then also, if you hit champions with your E and stunned them or slowed them, then you would be amplifying the damage for your ADC and for yourself attacking them. Especially because you fire it twice, your second shot should do extra damage. And then your ult as well in a team fight, if you ult, let's say 4 or 5 people, now the entire enemy team's going to be taking 10% more damage. So that's an extremely strong effect while making you tankier. So this is one that's in my Leona build for the same reason. When I go in and I stun them, then suddenly they're taking 10% more damage from me and my ADC, which makes it a really good supportive item. And if you want to do a build like that, I'll actually just show you. Well, let's name this Zyra real quick. So with my Leona, that's what my entire build is based on, is amplifying my teammates' damage, specifically my ADC. Right, so my Mythic Imperial Mandate, abilities that slow or immobilize a champion deal 36 to 60 bonus magic damage and marks them for 4 seconds. An ally's damage detonates the mark, dealing an additional 60 to 150 damage, and granting us both 20% move speed. So my first item makes it so that when I slow them down or stun them, I do a bunch of extra damage, and then my ADC will do a bunch of extra damage. Then I build Zeke's, which makes it so that whoever I mark as my accomplice here, when I stun or immobilize an enemy for the next 8 seconds, my ADC will do an extra 30 to 70 plus 1.5% health and 7.5% ability power damage. So this also makes my teammate do a bunch of extra damage once I go in. And then we have Abyssal, which adds 10% more damage on top of all of that. So those 3 items together allow me to make my ADC do a ton of burst damage. It's not the meta for Leona, but it's a build that I really enjoy and works really well for me. And it's definitely a build that could work on Seraphine as well. And then I go Frozen Heart because it reduces a bunch of base damage for me and slows my enemy's attacks, which gives me a high level of tankiness on top of the ability haste. So this I wouldn't include in your build for Seraphine, but because I'm a melee champion, I get a lot of value out of it. But there's definitely other items you could use to replace that. So, if you said you want to do a Seraphine build where you do... Yes, you can have multiple item pages for one champ, and you can do it. So, what I think is the ideal setup, which I want to do for all of my champions, but I haven't yet, is how I did it for Hecarim. So, for Hecarim here... And you can see I've got like a dozen... I've got so many item pages. I don't think there's a limit, or if there is, it's very high. So for Hecarim, I actually have 3 different builds on one page. So I only have to open up one page, and I can pick any build. And because these builds have different strengths and weaknesses, I can just pick and choose different pieces from the build. So let's say I'm going to build Assassin Hecarim, right? So I take my Duskblade Drekthar. And I get my... And then I decide, well, even though I'm building Assassin, for whatever reason, I feel like I really need some tankiness. Instead of taking my Berserker Greaves, I'm like, I'm going to go into my tank build, and I'm going to take my Plated Steel Caps, right? Or they're doing a ton of magic damage, so I just built my Youmuu's. Now I'm going to come down here and build my Spirit Visage. And I can kind of pick and choose, right? What parts I want from each build. And then the more you learn your items, the more you can kind of identify what you need in any given situation. Actually, want to flip those while I'm remembering. I always mix these two up and take the wrong one. So let's make you a mock Seraphine build, Naomi. So you wanted to do max burst damage, right? And just be a terrifying force. So you would probably want to start with Luden's Tempest, because Liandry's is more of a burn, so it's more of an overtime damage. Whereas Luden's Tempest is going to... Its passive effect does an extra chunk of damage, and will actually do damage to the allies near the person you hit. So if you hit the ADC, it'll also hit the support. So that'd probably be the mythic you want. And then for your boots, we'll go to movement. You would want Sorcerer's Shoes for more magic penetration for raw damage, because the support usually will build an item that has magic resist. And then if you're doing a ton of magic damage, the ADC might as well. They probably won't, but they might get some magic resist. And then the enemy mid laner almost always has magic resist. So that's going to be really useful. But then, like you said, if you really want mobility for roaming, then you could take some Moby Boots instead, if you felt like you didn't need your Sorcerer's Shoes. And then from there, you have a few options for your next item. You probably don't want Nashers, because that helps with auto attacks, and you probably don't auto that much. Lich's Bane gives move speed. So if you like roaming, Lich's Bane could be good, but it also has an ability that increases your auto attack damage. So if you're not auto attacking, then you're wasting a big portion of this. But if you feel like you can weave auto attacks in with your abilities, then Lich's Bane could be really good for you. At some point, you'd probably... Well, Cosmic Drive isn't going to be as good for burst damage, but it's really good for the huge ability haste. So if you're trying to weave more spells in, it wouldn't be as much burst damage, but it would be more of a utility. For a secondary item, let's see. Horizon Focus is pretty good because it has a active ability that does damage. The Chad teaching, he's trying. He's not very good at it, but he's trying. So because you use non-targeted abilities, if you hit a champion with a non-targeted ability at over 750 range, which isn't that much range, or mobilizing them will reveal them and increase damage taken by 10%. So this would give your support burst damage against them. The actual shot that you do that hits it gets the damage increase. So if you shoot your E at them and it's far enough away, then it'll do 10% more damage while enabling your ADC to do more damage, and it gets you 100 flat ability power, which is on the very high end for spells. So this could be a really good one for you. Liandry's gives a lot of ability power and slows the enemies, which could make it easier to hit your follow-up shots. So that's definitely an option. You're 1000% going to want Rabadons at some point in your build. Void Staff is really good if the enemy team builds a lot of magic resist. The 40% magic penetration is huge, but having it passive from Ludens and having it from your boots, there's a good chance you won't need this. But if they have a ton of magic resist, then it could be good. So we'll put that in like a little secondary block for you. Morellonomicon again, if they have a lot of healing, you're going to want to shut that down. So put this as a secondary for you. These are like situational items. Archangels is pretty good if you struggle with mana at all with Seraphine. Because you get your tier early, which gives you more max mana per time you hit an enemy champion. And let's see, you get 600 there. So once you complete Archangels, you'll get ability power equal to a percentage of the mana that you have. So let's see. You gain 3% ability power for mana, but it upgrades to what? Seraph's Embrace, I think. Alex, do you remember the name of the upgraded item? Drama, Alex. What the heck, Rum? Be happy, Alex. Yeah, Seraph's Embrace. Oh, it doesn't have ability power, that's why. Oops. So I guess you can't search up Seraph's Embrace because you can't buy it, which kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't. But it basically increases, I think, from 3% to 5%. So if you have 500, 600, it's 1100 mana. 5% of that would be like another 50 ability power. So that could be really good. So you don't have to take it early, but you'd want to take at least the tier early to start. That's the wrong item. Wait. So you can put this on separately. And then maybe like take the tier. You could even take it as a starting item if you wanted to. You can't buy it because it upgrades from Archangel Staff. So you get Archangel Staff, and then after you've hit enough... so you get some mana for each time you hit a champion with an ability, and then after you've reached its max level at 360 mana, then it upgrades into Seraph's Embrace, which is a stronger version of this. So you could take the tier as your starting item, or you could slip it in kind of like your starter boots whenever it's convenient. So we'll put a new block. I don't know if I can... Yeah, hold on. We'll create a block here, and then bump it up. So these will be the items that you just slip in whenever you have the extra gold. And then maybe take it like after your Horizon Focus. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this would be your base build maybe. And then these are your two situational items where you could replace Rylays or replace Archangels if you felt like you needed them. Yes, sorry. As a support, you would definitely take your support item first. Because of the way that you play, I think Spell Thief's Edge would probably be better for you. We'll put that very first. And your support item, you want to save until the very end. You can sell it at the end to complete your build because you don't need it at the end, but it gives you passive income over time. So you could sell it when you could afford one of your needlessly large rods, or you could wait until you had the full 3,800 and then replace it out. That would be up to if you felt like you needed the ability power early, or if you felt like you could coast on the gold income until you made your big jump. You can also sell your boots in the late game, depending on how the game's going. There are times where if losing the mobility from boots will really cause you problems. There are times you don't really need the mobility. But I would say that would be a good test build to start with, and then you kind of see how you feel about it, see what needs tweaking, see what works for you and what doesn't, and then you could maybe you say, I wish I had more mobility here, or I feel like my auto attacks are too weak. Then you could throw in Lich's Bane. Lich's Bane is an awesome item, but you have to understand how it works so that you're using it properly, right? After you use an ability, your next attack does a bunch of extra damage. So you would, use your Q and then auto attack, and then use your Q, auto, use your E, Q, auto, right? You kind of weave in those combos with your attacks. Right? Or if you're like, wow, I really like doing a lot of poke damage with my auto attacks, you can always take Nashor's Tooth, which gives you a ton of attack speed. Stealthiest Edge is your only ward. You take Oracle Lens. Would you still sell for an item? Yes. In the late game, your 180 ability power spike is going to be a lot more valuable than a ward. So I would 100% trade that out. And then you can always also buy control wards and place them before you switch. So yeah, that's kind of your standard. This is what I would describe as more of like a mid laner build. Right, a lot of magic burst damage for a mid laner mage. And of course, the kind of alternative mage build is the burn and utility, which is what I do with mine. And then you can see for Hecarim, I've got multiple different builds. I've got my Assassin build, which has a lot of lethality. Lethality bypasses armor and magic resist. So it kind of bypasses all defenses. And has a lot of attack damage, but then also has a lot of movement speed. Not a lot of... It has some movement speed, right? So Yomu is going to give me passive movement and an active for movement. For a support build, you would... Let me pull up my Leona again. So, Imperial Mandate's a really good support item because of the passive you get to amplify your team's damage, and you have the ability haste for your utility, as well as a little bit of survivability. Zeke's is a great support item. Abyssal can be a good support item. Alternative as a mythic for Imperial Mandate, another really good support mythic, is Locket of the Iron Salahari, which active gives your team, or I think it's everyone around you. Let me check real quick. Grant nearby allies a 230 to 385 shield, decaying over 2.5 seconds, and it gives nearby allies armor and magic resist. So this will make your teammate tankier, and it'll give you a shield to protect them, which kind of synergizes with the fact that you already generate shields. So you will have a lot of shield uptime. And then on top of that, Knight's Vow is a really good support item. If I can find it here. We'll just search it. That's not how you spell Knight. Here it is. It gives you a lot of health and mana regen, but then it also makes it so that you choose a designated ally, and 15% of the damage that they take will be redirected to you. So if you're staying behind doing poke and giving shields and healing, your ADC will take some damage. That damage will be redirected to you, but then you'll have 300% base health regen, which will help you bring that back. That's more of a tank support item, but I mean, you could be creative and fit it into Seraphine if you wanted to be experimental with it. Rylaze is good as a support item because of the slow effect. So even though it'll give you a lot of ability power, it also gives you a really good utility effect. So it's just a really good item overall. Redemption's a really good support item. It'll increase your heal and shield power, which would be really good for your W. And your active lets you call down a giant beam of light that'll heal allies and damage enemies. So it's kind of like Leona's ult, except without the CC and has a healing effect. And then also it gives the mana regen if you're struggling with mana, which I don't think Seraphine does too much. Mikhail's Blessing gives heal and shield power, right? Any of these cheaper items in this like 23, 24, 2500 range are pretty good support items. And the reason that they're all cheaper is because supports generate less money, which makes them more accessible early game. Staff of Flowing Water, heal and shield power. Healing and shielding an ally grants you both 15 move speed and 20 to 40 ability power. So this would probably be an extremely good Seraphine item. With the synergy that you would have with your W. Charlotte, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. The battle song is really good if you're going to play extremely aggressive, because your active gives all of the team around you a huge move speed boost, so you can rush in. And its mythic passive gives you more move speed, which is good for roaming. So this is like a very aggressive support mythic. So you can basically chain together a ton of heal and shield power, and then a bunch of like small utility effects in here would be recommended. Does anyone have any other questions on items? Hi, kitty. Coming to hang out? Any questions for items? Going once, going twice. Alright. If not, we will go ahead and move on to some gameplay, where I will talk through my decision making and the things I'm looking for in a game. So I'm going to start with top lane, because that's the simplest lane, and we can break down the general ideas for your playing. You got it, Jerome. You're in a game that's about to end? You're welcome to join me if you want lag, but I'm going to not join voice chat because I need to focus on the teaching aspect. But if you want to be in the game just to play, then I can wait a minute. Oh, I'm out of water. Dang. It's a tragedy, kitty. We're out of water. You and your pink ears. Yo, what's up, Ghosty? You absolutely can join. Though it feels like a crime to play with you, not have you in voice chat. You came at the one time where I'm doing like weird private games. You can join now as long as you promise to play with me when I'm done teaching as well, so we can chat. Yes, you almost always want to build your mythic first, because the mythics are all with their base power level on par with any other legendary item, but with an additional extremely strong passive effect. I mean, sometimes you'll build finished boots first, depending on the situation. But you usually don't, and sometimes you'll build components, right? So if I'm fighting an early Yone, and he's already driving me crazy with his health gain, like right off the bat, then, and I'm playing like mid lane against him, then I would probably go to Thornmail, right? And I would build a Bramble Vest. 800 gold, 35 armor, and when struck by an attack, deal damage back, and apply Grievous Wounds for 40% reduced healing. So for 800 gold, I would be heavily countering his biggest strength and helping me a lot in the early game. So I wouldn't build the entire Thornmail. I would just build this first component that gives me the key quality that I need to the armor, and then I would finish my Mythic, and then probably come back and finish Thornmail. So same thing with a mage and the Morellonomicon. I might come through early and grab an Oblivion Orb, but then focus on finishing my Mythic. I'll probably be on for a while. Let's go, Ghosty. Yo, what's up, Mr. V-Dub? How's it going? I appreciate the lurk. I hope you're having a lovely Saturday. Like for Hecarim... Oh, let's go over runes. So say for Hecarim, I used to take a rune that gave my boots an active effect. So I would often buy my completed boots first to get that active effect. No, we're not doing ranked lag. So, runes. Runes are a little trickier because you can only have, I think, by default, 2 extra rune pages, and you have to buy more. So, if you have 1 or 2 mains, it's not a problem, but if you're switching between, like, 5 or 6 different champions, then you'll have to be able to switch on the fly. But, like, if you're just playing Seraphine and one other, then you can have a dedicated rune page, and it's not a problem. So, yeah, I have 4 rune pages, so I think you get 3 by default, and I've bought 1 so far. No, I don't mind at all, Naomi. I'd love to have you in. So, let's go to here, for example. So, if you're playing as Seraphine, you've got a few different options. So, the runes you pick are going to be primarily revolving around the playstyle you're planning on engaging in. So if you're going for an extremely aggressive Seraphine bot lane, then Sorcery is a really good one for you. And I'd go Arcane Comet. That way, anytime you deal ability damage, you'll fire the Comet that does extra damage. It's really, really good for early poke. That's going to keep a lot more pressure on them in the early game. And sometimes even secure you a kill that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. Ahri is basically just a worse version. So if you're choosing between the two, I would just go Arcane Comet. The shielding effect you're getting from Ahri is not worth the loss of damage on Comet. Phase Rush is not something you're going to want at all as Seraphine, but it's what I run on my Hecarim. It's a lot of extra move speed when you're weaving in and out with auto attacks. So Arcane Comet would be your big one here. Or alternatively, you can go Domination. And you can take Dark Harvest, where when you deal damage to a low health champion, you harvest a soul. Which will give you increased ability power or attack damage, depending on what you're playing. So Dark Harvest is going to scale really well and be really good in the late game, but useless early. And Comet will be extremely useful early game and be very effective, but it will fall off late game and not be very useful. So you can build for early game damage and winning your lane, or you can build for late game damage and being more of a carry. Those would be my 2 recommendations for Seraphine. The primary rune page you choose is going to determine your keystone. So whether you go Domination or Sorcery, the next 3 rungs you'd have would be the same regardless of if it were primary or secondary. There is also Electrocute, which is, like you said, kind of a middle ground. Hitting a champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities within 3 seconds deals bonus adaptive damage. So this would probably not be good for Seraphine because it's going to be difficult to enable it because you're not using very many autos and you're trying to stay back. If you poke just 1 or 2 shots, then you are not going to get it to proc very often. Versus, like, if I ran Electrocute with Leona, when I use my combo, I'm guaranteed 3 hits. Because, like, E, which takes me to them, Q, which stuns them, and hit them with an auto, which would trigger Electrocute. But for Seraphine, if you hit them with your E and Q, you still wouldn't trigger it. So if you got the Wombo combo double EQ, you could trigger it. But I probably would go with Comet over Electrocute because this would be harder to enable with your playstyle. If you go Domination and you choose Dark Harvest. Okay, so if you're dealing with low mana, you can still go Domination Dark Harvest. And as your secondary, if you go Precision, Then there is a rune called Presence of Mind, which increases your mana or energy regeneration when damaging enemy champion. So it's kind of like a good sorcery alternative for your mana problems. So you could go Dark Harvest with Presence of Mind. And then I'd go Cheap Shot, because you deal bonus damage to impaired enemies. So that's going to make them... That's going to make you really strong when you hit them with your double EQ. And then Eyeball Collection is more of that late game scaling. You can mess with the ward ones, but because I'm bad with vision, they're just not very useful for me. It has to do with gaining strength from destroying wards and whatnot. But Eyeball Collection, each time you kill a champion, you get an eyeball, which increases your ability power. So that's going to help you scale later. And then this one depends on, again, kind of your playstyle. If you're building for more haste and want to be more supporty, then the ability haste would be really good. But if you're really planning on carrying with your ult in the late game, making huge plays, then Ultimate Hunter would be really good. Movement speed if you want to do a ton of roaming. And I probably wouldn't take Omni Vamp as Seraphine, because you're just not going to get much value out of it, because you're not autoing. So I'd go between these three depending on how you want to play. Probably leaning towards Ultimate or Ingenious. But I'd probably go Ultimate personally. Then Presence of Mind, or for Precision you want Presence of Mind. And then you could go more aggressive with like a coup de grace for helping finish off people. Or you could go for Tenacity to protect yourself more from the crowd control of your enemy support. So this is more defensive, and this would be more offensive. But I definitely pick between these two. You won't benefit from attack speed very much. And again, you're not really looking for a lifesteal with your playstyle. And between these bottom three, Coup de Grace is just kind of the best. I mean, you could go for Cut Down because you're not building for max health, but Coup de Grace has more burst once you get them to that point. This would be more easily enabled, but less of a benefit. So this is what my runes for Seraphine might look like. Yeah, Cut Down versus tanks. But for your ADC, the Coup de Grace is going to be better. And then here, I'd probably go Adaptive Force, and Health. Both of the Adaptive Forces for the pure offense, and then the Health, because you're dealing with a magic user and a ADC. So building one defense or the other would leave a weakness, so Health is going to kind of cover both of them. What items are the best for low health enemies? So you're talking like what items would be good for dealing with enemies with low health. There's really only one item that specifically synergizes with low health enemies, and that's the Collector. But I believe the Collector is attack damage. So yeah, it's attack damage and lethality. Dealing damage to enemies below 5 health, execute them immediately and give you gold. So this would not be good for Seraphine. I wouldn't worry too much about synergizing against low health enemies. I mean, if you're doing a ton of burst damage, that's going to synergize against any of her. Like, the more damage you do, the more damage you're going to do against low health enemies too, right? I mean, like I said, Rylai's is really good for keeping them from escaping once they're low health. Varus is low health enemies? What's Varus? Is that a champion? Ability power, heal and shield. I mean, this has nothing to do with low health enemies, but yeah, it's a good item for sure. It's highly recommended for if you're playing more supportive. I wouldn't take it if you're going for burst damage, though. So definitely 2 separate builds. Alright, Lag, are you finished with your game? Oh, right, right, right. Oh, I might have invited the wrong person. If I mixed you up with someone else. Yeah, Eotov is spaghetti, you're Neefmon. Whoops. Yeah, I'm not really doing community games, Bean. I can get you in, I'm just not doing voice chat right now. But if you'd like to hop in just for the vibes. Yeah, we're not. I mean, you can use your normal pings, but again, I'm doing a full stream of consciousness tutorialization for what I'm doing and why I'm doing it to help teach people how to think. So, just think of this as you're in a random game, but I happen to be in it. Yo, what's up, Tabby? How's it going? Sorry, guys. Like I said, these aren't community games yet. I'm just letting these people in to vibe. I'm playing this like a solo game. I'm not going to be talking to them or interacting in any meaningful way. I'm breaking down my thoughts and how I'm going to play as a top laner to teach new people what to think about when you're playing in a lane. We will do community games in a little bit. I will probably do a top game and a support game and a jungle game, and then we'll do community. So I apologize for the inconvenience. Usually these are always community games if I'm not doing solo ranked, but this is the one unique circumstance in which I'm going to keep the queue closed for a bit. Yo, what's up, no name? How's it going? League? This is League. How keen of you to notice. That is true, lag. And hopefully, after a tutorial day, we can get more people learning and playing the game, then customs will become a easy, more regular thing. So I'm looking to play Mord top lane because he's my best. No name, I don't think there's anything I can teach you. So, because I'm playing top lane, these are our summoner spells. They're like abilities their champion has, but they're universal abilities, and they've got a very long cooldown. So as top laner, I'm going to want Teleport and Flash. You can switch out Teleport for other things. It just depends. Ignite is for when you're playing extremely aggressive. Ignite, if you're extremely aggressive, you're playing engaging early and trying to secure a kill. And Barrier Heal can be really good if you're playing super defensively. But Teleport lets you get back to your lane really fast if you die early, or if you want to reset to keep your CS up, or your creep score for money. Because I'm playing Mordekaiser, Death Knight is the rune page I set up for him. So Conquer is going to be, after I do like 3 attacks on an enemy, then I get a burst of like attack speed and health regen, or health steal at least. And we've got Legend Bloodline, which will give us lifesteal late game. Ravenous Hunter will give us lifesteal late game. Taste of Blood will give us lifesteal late game. So we're going for a very sustainy build with a lot of health gain in the late game. What's up, lag? I'm against Kled. I see that. So I'm fighting a champion that can be very tanky and has a lot of mobility. We'll do Bianca. Gonna lock in Mordekaiser here. Oh, did they ban Sarah? I'm so sorry, Naomi. That is a tragedy. So, they've got Kayn jungle. So the one thing we gotta note here is that he has the ability to go through walls. So when he's trying to gank, he can come from paths that we wouldn't normally expect. So we're gonna keep that in mind. They have Viego, so they've got 2 junglers, but only one of them will be jungling. Viego is probably playing in a different lane. Because he's a new champion, people will often take him to play in lanes he doesn't belong in. I just realized that my music got really weird. We're going to go back to our normal playlist now. Oh, I still have display capture on. Hold up. The Way of the Legends. So you can click on a little tiles here to see the level of your opponents and teammates. They're all generally around my level except for Viego. Level doesn't matter too much, it's just the amount of time they've played. But level 229 is a lot of play time. So this player could still be very bad, but we know they at least have a lot of experience. Just something to keep in mind. Now you can click these arrows to get abilities, but I highly recommend setting up a hotkey so I can do it like that without even looking. So I'm taking Doran's Blade. It's a starter item that gives me some good Omnivamp. Omnivamp means you'll gain health from any damage source, including abilities. And then I'll use my extra 50 gold for a health potion just to keep me in my lane longer. So you got like a minute before minions actually come up here. Right now I've got my Q, which is just this big slam. It does more damage if I hit a single target than if I hit a group of people. My next ability is a W once I unlock it from getting level 2. Well, I'll probably get it at level 3 because I'll take my E next. But W gives me a shield based on my, I think it's grit, or what do they call it? I don't know if they named it, but this bar will fill up the more I damage different units. And then I'll get a shield based on how much of this bar is full. I can cancel the shield early to gain a percentage of it as health. And then my E, I will throw a hand out in front of me. That'll grab enemies and pull them back towards me. But it's on a very, very long cooldown. Honestly, both of my abilities are pretty long cooldowns. And then my ultimate lets me pull a champion into a different realm, where it's only me and them fighting in a 1v1, and I steal 10% of their stats. So early on, we're going to let the minions fight. We're just going to look for the last hits, but also for getting some poke damage on Kled. So hitting the minions and not hitting him is not what I want. So we last hit him, and now we're going to wait to last hit him. Our Q's up, so we're going to get that poke damage. Now he's engaging, I get 3 hits off to get my passive, which is his AoE damage. Alright, so that was a pretty equal trade right there. But here to use the healing potion. I missed my poke there, which is unfortunate, but not a big deal. So we're constantly moving, so we're a harder target for him to lock down. So, before anything else, I wanted to go on record, I am not a good top laner, and I'm not even a great League of Legends player, which is why this is a beginner's guide. Let's see, if we can pull him in here and get him to hit us under the tower, then he'll start taking a lot more damage. You also never want to fight minions without you having minions to back you up, because the minions will do a lot of damage to you over time. And sorry, it's a lot to focus on to explain while playing. They'll do a lot of damage to you over time, and you don't want to take damage for no reason. So you want to pull back until the enemy minions are attacking your minions, and then you want to start engaging on them. So now they're distracted, so now I could attack them if I wanted to. I'm still going to wait to try to keep the lane pushed up, so I'm safe from getting ganked. So now I'm going to start leveling up my Q, because it's my big high damage ability. So I'm going to put all of my levels into it until I can get my ultimate. So because the wave is so pushed up, you see he can't really farm now. So even though he won early with his engages, we're making up for lost time by having good wave management. So now he just burned his flash, which is a summoner spell. That's on a 300-second cooldown. So making him waste that early was really good. Now when our jungler comes up, it's going to be really hard for him to escape. And he's taking a bunch of damage from minions for no reason, which is a big misplay on his part. I'm going to be looking to hit my Q to guarantee the kill in this cannon, which again gives you more gold than the rest of the minions. So I did get the cannon, which was good. Try to string together a little combo here. And there we go. So now we've gotten our kill, which gives us a lot of gold, and it gives us free farm while he's got to reset. So now instead of managing a wave, I'm going to push it aggressively because I want to reset in a minute so I can go buy items. So I'm going to do as much damage as I can as quickly as I can while still trying to secure last hits. I'll wait for this one. He's teleporting back, so we can't back easily, but our W gives us a lot of HP, so we're still sustaining in lane. We've got our ult now before him, so we can maybe make another big play soon. But we got to know, he's spent some of his gold on items now, so he's going to be stronger than we are. We've got more potential power than him, but we haven't gained that power yet, so we haven't gone back to our base. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be looking towards trying to get him low on health, and then when I find a good opportunity, I'll use my ultimate on him and all-in him. However, I did just have a bad trade there, which makes that more difficult. Because I need to spend some time gaining health now, while still trying to reduce his health. I'm not at a position right now where I could all-in him. So now I saw him, I can't see where he's at, so he's missing in my eyes. So I'm going to ping like this and put question marks, which tells my team that my guy's missing, so he could be roaming and going after other people. But it's actually a good opportunity because he's missing. I'm going to go ahead and reset while he's not pressuring my lane. But I got to push this wave out first so it doesn't crash on my tower. So I'm getting sloppy with my last hits because my priority right now is doing this as quickly as I can. I'm less worried about the gold than I am the time I've got to spend. So he just uses ultimate, and I don't know why. But that's really good for us, because now he doesn't have it to use this on us later. That wasn't English. So I held the B button to reset. I'm going to buy my Leeching Seer here, which is the first part to this big item. Got a little bit of leftover gold, so I'll buy my boots. So the Leeching Seer is going to give us 10% Omnivamp with a little spell power and health. So we're going to have a lot more sustain in our lane now, which means over time we'll be able to hold out against him really well. And the boots are going to make it so that we can chase him down quicker when he tries to escape, or escape better when he tries to chase us down. Yo, what's up, Sue? What's up, Astral? How's it going? Oh no, I'm so sorry, Astral. That's no fun. So I don't want to stall the wave when it's actually under my tower, because then it's actually just doing damage to my tower. So at this point, we are stronger than he is. I think he either just reset to go buy more items, which means we get more free farm on him, or he is hiding in a bush right now to try to kill me. And if that's the case, we are going to... Yep. We're gonna kill him instead. Because we're stronger than him, and we have our ult. Yep. And then we can use our W, and we're basically at full health. So now we're going to push aggressively, because instead of holding our wave, we're stronger than him now. We want to try to be crashing into his tower, and just completely winning our lane. That buff that just went around me means that our team just took the first dragon, which is even another buff that makes me have an advantage over my lane. These little notches right here are plates. It protects the tower from damage early game, but you get a bunch of gold for each one that you break. In the late game, the plates will fall off, and you can destroy towers quicker, but you don't get gold from damaging it anymore. So we get at least 2 plates here, which is very good. And we should win this fight, too. And then we'll use our W to heal up. Now as we continue to fight here. So now that I'm pushed up in the lane, I'm going to come down here and put a ward in this bush, which will give us vision of the river, so if someone's coming to gank us, we'll see them before they get here. So I just missed my grasp there, which was just really sloppy, because I probably could have killed him if I landed it, but it's not a big deal, because we're just beating this guy. So again, we can push this more aggressively now, because we want to be crashing into his tower. And the uniquely good thing about Mordekaiser is that people can't really gank us, because when our ult's up, because we pull them into a different realm of existence, if 2 people attack me, I can take 1 into my ult, and I can 1v1 them, kill them, and then have fight another 1v1. So it only works if you're stronger than your opponent, but you can turn a 2v1 into 2 separate 1v1s. And with all my health gain, it means that if I dominate my 1v1, then I will actually see, so they're trying to gank me now. So I use my ult. I would have used it earlier, but it actually wasn't ready. It was on a 4-second cooldown. So I got him, and my jungler came to help me, which is even better. They both came to help me, which turned into a very clean sweep. Now my mid laner is going to help me push very aggressively here, which means we should be able to destroy this tower probably. So what would have happened if they didn't help me is I would have killed the first guy and then probably ran from the second guy. And if it seemed like I wouldn't get to my tower in time, I would have used my flash, which I haven't used yet, which would get me out safely. So usually you don't tank minions like this, but because of my health sustain, I can make it work without it being a problem. I don't want to do it a bunch. You can see I pulled back now, but let me get a little bit of early damage on these guys to get up here quicker. So we still haven't reset. So after we take this plate, we're going to reset to our base. And we're going to get much, much stronger. It's going to be a huge power spike for us. So get that plate, which gives us a bunch of gold. We're going to come in this bush, which means no one can see us unless they've placed a ward in the bush. And it'd be very weird for them to place a ward in this bush. So now I can finish my mythic item right here, and I can finish my boots. I don't have enough to start my next item yet, but I'll actually sell my... Oh, I don't have a healing potion. I used it, I guess. So getting my mythic and my boots is going to have me really strong. If I hold tab, I can actually see what my opponents have. So he's got a bunch of smaller items, 1 epic item, a starter item, and 2 small items. So he doesn't have a mythic or boots, which means I'm going to be substantially stronger than him. Sorry, chat, I'm not paying too much attention. I'm just really focusing on the tutorialization here. So if we fight him, we just win every fight now. Our ult also is a passive where for every second spent in a fight, we gain more damage up to 10 seconds, and then we start doing true damage, which bypasses armor and magic resist. Because our ult brings us in a 1v1 fight that they can't escape, it synergizes very well. So I'm going to just start beating tower here when he attacks me. So they're ganking me, which means I'm going to ult their jungler. I missed a lot of my abilities, which is very sloppy. So he gets away, but I still win this fight. We'll use our W to get the health up. So if they were better players, they would have probably beat me there. It's because I recognized that they weren't playing well that I was able to pull that off. Because I made some big mistakes, but their equally big mistakes allowed my better stats to carry me through the fight. And now we're going to take the tower here, which is a bunch of gold again. We'll back and buy some more items to get even stronger. And then we'll start roaming around and helping our team. At that point, if he starts to push up on our tower, we can easily come behind them because he won't have a tower to hide behind and get free kills. And until then, we just start making our other lanes win. So we're going to get a hefty attack speed boost and a little more ability power. So our second item here is going to give us a ton of damage output with our speed and ability power, but it also gives us more sustain because each time we do damage, we're going to be gaining health back. So it's an extremely good item for Mordekaiser and for my build with Mordekaiser. So I was pressing my W because I was not full shield, but my W wouldn't go off. I don't know why. I'm guessing it has something to do with an ability used. Opponents can have something called silence, which means they cancel your ability to use your abilities, which is what I'm guessing happened there, or I was stunned. I didn't see why I couldn't use my W, but had I been able to use my W, I would have gotten a huge shield and then pulled under tower. So there was a reason I was standing in that pile, not scared even though I was about to die, but that reason got countered by somebody using something on me I didn't expect. Now they're getting too cocky though, and their team's going to get punished for playing aggressive here in a minute. Alright, they're pulling back. If I can get close enough, I'll just ult one and kill them. So Kayn pulled back towards our jungle, which leaves him pretty vulnerable. So we use our flash there to secure the last kill. I wanted that scuttle, but it belongs to a jungler, so I could take it and get extra gold, but it would be extremely rude. So I'm going to help my mid laner push their tower. So we're going to pull back because we've got no minions to take the hits right now. Wait for our minions to push back up. Now that the minions are taking the shot, we'll push back in, and we should be able to destroy it here. And I've got a full bar for my shield too, which puts me in a really good position for the next fight. So if I can bait her away from her tower... Okay. So both of them used their ult on me, so that was a pretty strong play on their part. And I made the mistake of trying to flash out, but I forgot how to use my flash. So I'm playing a little bit overconfident. even though I am very strong right now. If I make stupid decisions, it's still going to punish me for it. Yo, what's up, Luna? It's going very well. I think that we've shared a lot of very good knowledge so far. I hope it's useful to everyone. So the good thing is I should have used ult too. I tend to hoard things more than I should. And so I could have easily ulted someone there, which would have gotten me out of the ult and a 1v1 free kill. So I'm just going to ult him here and then kill him. Now we're just going to push the wave. Because they're going to play very defensive with a lot of their team dead. So we're going to start getting our minions to pressure the towers. And if the waves are pushed in multiple places, then we can spread out the way that they have to try to defend. So somebody pinged the dragon is alive, which is true. It's up over here. But we're going to wait for the jungler to initiate that engage, and then I will follow the jungler and support him. I could fight the dragon by myself at this point, but it's not really my responsibility. So I'm going to keep doing my job and being productive by keeping pressure on the enemy while they go get the dragon. There's two different ways you could do it. You could go support them here to make it a safer take, which is what you would normally do, is protect the dragon. But because we're so strong, I can safely be up here, even if I get pressured by a lot of people. So I made a big misplay there in a couple different ways. I clicked on the wall on accident, which made my guy pad back, and I didn't really shoot a ult back up. It was just a poor choice. I was playing too greedy up here, and again, because I'm so strong and I know we're gonna win the game, I tend to play a little sloppier. You absolutely should, Slade. He's a super strong champion and super fun to play, in my opinion. I basically just got greedy there, and greed is one of the biggest things that will cause you failure in League. There's always a time where an enemy's just so close, or a tower is so close, or a creature's so close, and you just want it so badly, even though you know you shouldn't go for it. So learning to control and balance out that greed impulse is very important. And something I'm not very good at yet. I let my greed get the best of me all the time. So we're going to push mid lane again, and then because they'll probably be defensive on mid lane, once I push these minions in, I'll probably, what's called split push, and I'll go top to try to, yeah, so he's coming here to defend. So now while he's worried about defending there, I'm going to come put pressure up here. And then what that's doing is spreading their defenses thin, and they probably won't react quick enough up here, which will let me get a bunch of tower damage too. In order to split push properly, you either have to have a lot of mobility, or you have to be strong enough that you can escape getting pressured. And I'm counting on the fact that I'm very strong. So let's see if Kled pushes me here. So if he stays and just defends, then I'll just move back to mid and split the pressure again. So now that we've got enough people here, we can just ignore Kled because he doesn't do enough damage. And he knows that, which is why he's running. So I'm being greedy again, which is stupid again, but also fun. So we're going to slip back out. So I'm not too greedy. And I realized it would be a bad situation. but I wanted to go try to get that kill. I just don't have enough speed to track them down. So I could build more aggressively, but I'm going to continue to build defensive so that I'm just a complete unit and can't get shut down. So now we're going to start the inhibitor, which will make our minions get really big and strong that come from this lane specifically. So we don't have many minions coming, and the ones that do come are going to be weak. So we'll probably just not worry about top lane now and then come back to it once our big minions are pushing. Because top lane's going to take care of itself now with the big minions, so we'll push mid lane and try to get this inhibitor too. The more inhibitors you get, the more the enemy has to focus on fighting minions, and then you can have more free range to do whatever you want. Now they're all distracted mid, so I'm going to go split push bottom lane. Actually, lag's already going down there, and we don't need 2 people bottom lane. You go. I don't. There you go. I don't have my ult up, so I shouldn't be engaging the whole team like this yet. It's too risky, because I haven't bought my big tanky item yet. Once my ult's up, I can play really aggressively. Morgana did give me a spell shield, and I got 10 seconds left. I can probably move in now. Oh, I invested flash to try to do a really big power play and whiffed on it. Not a big deal, it's a waste of flash, but it would have been really cool if it worked. Alright, we're going to go ahead and reset here because we want a lot of gold. So this will give us a very big power spike. This gives us a lot of resistances and health, but the biggest thing is it increases the rate at which all healing affects us. So because we have so many sources of healing, from our runes to our items, that's going to give us a disproportionate amount of value. So it should be very difficult for them to kill us now. So now I'm building into Rylai's Scepter, which will make our ability slow enemies, because once we get that aura around us from our passive and getting 3 hits, that aura will permanently keep enemies slowed that are around us, which will make it really hard for anyone to escape from us. So we build sustain first, and then we build offense, and then we build more tankiness and sustain, and then we build more offense. I do have my ult up, so I can force an engagement here. That was gorgeous. It's a very risky play that paid off very well. So now we're just going to win the game here. So if you go in their actual base right there, you will get erased immediately by a laser. So we can't chase him down. Can only hope he comes out to try to protect his core, and then we can get some more kills for fun. And that's what a strong top game looks like. You go to Triss build? Let's go. We'll give Ghost your endorsement because he made some clutch plays with us. Oh, we got a little chesty chest here.